Adventure, an e-commerce podcast that isn't just about numbers and profits. It's about the visionaries who've carved their path, navigated challenges, and left an indelible mark on the e-commerce landscape. So get ready to be inspired, informed, and immersed in the world where innovation meets commerce. Joining us today is Oz Merchant, VP of Customer Success and Support at Viably, a financial solution for e-commerce business owners. With over 20 years of work experience, Oz is a seasoned leader, entrepreneur, and coach in the fields of sales, customer success, and e-commerce. He's passionate about helping businesses grow and thrive. And also joining in on the conversation will be Joseph Phillips, account manager here at BidX. Joe has a passion for all things e-commerce, and at BidX, he handles ad strategy for enterprise clients in the US. So welcome, both Oz and Joe. I'm just going to jump right in, Oz. So what we want to hear about is what inspired you to kind of venture into the Amazon e-commerce industry. We want to really hear your journey of kind of building up to that, and also some of the key challenges that you faced, with that journey.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Jeanette. Joe, great meeting you as well. It's an interesting question. My background is actually in retail, wholesale manufacturing from like the old era where, there was free internet. It was all about brick and mortar, and, wholesale meant basically you can sell to a bunch of retail stores, and manufacturing in the sense of getting production made overseas. And I did that for a number of years and then got into the world of high tech. And getting to the world of high tech, startup companies specifically, did that for, I guess, almost 20 years now. And, the world of startups is really about, solving a problem and, understanding, how can basically the greater a number of folks benefit from solving that problem, and how do you basically scale that company up and make it profitable. So when we started looking at in the last year or so, when we started Viably, one of the challenges, we've actually worked together for the team that started Viably, so we've worked together for the last 10 years together in the previous company, and then we had an exit. When we started Viably, the problem we were looking at was like, what did we face as a challenge, which is one of the things a lot of startups face, especially in the startup kind of cloud e-commerce, or the SaaS world, which is capital, meaning that traditional banks don't know how to underwrite that type of business. It's not something that's like, well, where's your property, where's your equipment, where's something that I can collateralize and give you money against? And that doesn't exist in the SaaS world. And we found that to be also the case in the e-commerce world. Banks don't know how to underwrite that type of business. So it's like, okay, how do we help these folks that are having the same kind of challenges we did, 10 years ago? Is, we couldn't go to a bank and just say, hey, can we, have some money to help grow and scale the business? So that was kind of the impetus to go solve this problem, just for a different set of folks that are having the same kind of challenges.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I know that, with startups, you always have the option, even though it's very, very hard work of getting, angel investors and investors, seed money, all of that sort of thing. But as an e-commerce business, you don't really have that option. So then what are you left with? A lot of just kind of conventional means that don't really lend themselves to, starting an e-commerce business. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah. The VC market, at least from what I've seen in the e-commerce space, it's, certain brands can get it because they see there's a huge growth potential. Because they're, from a VC standpoint, you have to consider that, most of their portfolio companies are not going to be successful. They're going to have, some kind of totally that fail, and some that will do just a mild multiple. But they're really wanting a couple that have these huge home runs to basically cover the returns that are expected for the portfolio for that fund. So on the e-commerce side, there's not always that kind of a home run. So VCs, certain brands, they can see that vision potential, but for a lot of e-commerce brands, that's not the case. So there has to be some other ways. And then e-commerce folks, they're not necessarily wanting to dilute themselves and give up that equity. So is there some other options of growth without, giving 50% of my company away?
Sure. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But that brings us into market trends. I mean, given that you've been in this business for quite a while and in different roles, especially with customer success, I know that previous to being a partner and affiliate manager here at BidX, I had several roles as a customer success. And it's interesting when you see people sort of come in that need assistance and wanting maybe a product feature that's not available. You kind of have your finger on the pulse of where the market is going, what people sort of need to see in products. So where do you think, how do you stay ahead of the competition? How do you adapt to some of those market trends? How do you shift and sort of adjust and pivot when you see those things happening?
Yeah, a lot of it is just having these conversations and understanding kind of the pain points of sellers. And there's different types of sellers, right? There's different levels of sophistication and kind of how they are currently running their business, where they're wanting to go to. There's a lot of people, experts out there that are helping, navigate them to say, okay, well, you can, if you're doing wholesale, there's a lot of things you can do to drive more efficiency and just, how you organize your warehouse facilities and stuff. When you're doing private label and how you're talking to your suppliers, there's potentially some options there to get, optimize that as well. So it's the type of seller as one thing. It's the sophistication of kind of where they're at and kind of their own business journey, entrepreneur journey, because there's still, so many of these folks, they're kind of blown away themselves. They're like, wow, this turned into a real business. This was this little side hustle that I was, some of these people I talked to, they're like, I just started this in college, and now here I am doing, 7-figure business, and I think it's probably time I quit my job and start
It's
doing this
funny.
full
I
time.
think, and even as people just kind of entering new entrepreneurs, we always sort of do risk management. We think about, okay, what do I need to do if this doesn't go as I expect, or if this doesn't kind of play out and I'm not successful at it? But we rarely sort of plan for success, right? So I
Yeah,
think a lot of times, if you do have a seller that's all of a sudden after 3 months, like, wow, I was not expecting this, that takes even a different kind of planning, I think.
yeah. And what's been really interesting in this space is, especially at least we've seen on the private label side, success is actually more cost intensive than failure, in the sense that if you basically get, your test run of SKUs in and it does really well, you have to have enough capital to place that next order before, you've put all this money into advertising, you started getting the sales in, you're starting to rank up. But if you run out, if you sell out, it's going to plummet again. So you need to have that next order ready, and you're basically making that decision off of maybe a week or two's worth of data to say, yeah, okay, this is trending, this is kind of exceeding what I thought. Let me go put another order in. Let's see if I can get this as quickly as possible so that I can keep selling. So,
So
and
what's your best advice then for somebody in that situation? Obviously, a business plan takes into account some of those things, but what kind of insight or advice could you give to somebody that's like, not just plan for failure, but plan for success? And these are some of the things that, you sort of need to have in place, or at least, be ready for.
I mean, part of that is, having some sort of capital in place. And that's probably, if you're starting off, that's probably not having outside capital, but actually just with your own. And one of the things I always tell folks is, there's a time for bringing in outside capital, and there's times where you don't. Meaning that, one of the things when we analyze a business, we see kind of, how the business is performing, because basically that's what we're underwriting, is the health of the business. And one of the things that can sometimes become quite apparent is, if you're trying to feed this machine with capital, but you have this leaky bucket, which for a lot of at least on the private label side, is their ads, meaning their ads aren't optimized. And basically they're trying to, rather than optimizing the ads, they're just trying to feed more dollars into it to basically spend their way out of it. That's not probably a good use of capital, meaning you're not going to get the best ROI for that. If you can solve the ad problem, you're going to you get a far better ROI on your capital, and you have an overall healthier business and more fundable business. So there's times for that. There's times where, if you are just launching up, just make sure you've have enough capital. And I see these TikToks and stuff, like you can get started for just $1,000 and stuff. Well, the reality is, if you're actually successful, then you're going to need a lot more capital. You can do
Yeah.
$1,000 and fail and be fine, but if you're successful, you're going to need a lot of capital, and you're going to need a lot faster.
And that could be a huge blocker, right? You could be right
So,
on the verge of success, not have access to that capital or not know where to go for that capital, and it just stops you right in your tracks. Whereas, it could be a whole different story. They could be on, $1 million sellers if
exactly.
they have that capital.
Yeah.
Um,
So having those kind of relationships, or at least thinking, to what you said earlier, Jen, it's planning for success. I think there's, especially when people start side hustles, they really think about, okay, well, I have this much that I can play with for the side hustle. If it fails, I'll be okay. But they haven't thought about really what's the other side of it. If I'm successful, do I have the capital to continue that success?
And you're right. I mean, our failures are limited to what we're able to invest, right? Our initial investment, but our successes are unlimited. And I don't think, typically, most people don't think in those terms. So definitely building sort of those plans for success right, off the bat when you're starting the business, building it into your business plan, knowing where to go for what you need, because scaling up is pretty much unlimited.
Exactly. And I think part of that is the key notion of thinking of it as a business. It's easy to say it's a side hustle and I don't need to know that much about business, but the reality is it is a business. It's easy to just go get an LLC and set up and say I've set up shop, but it's another thing to really understand just the fundamentals of running a business. And especially then it starts scaling. I mean, I've talked to folks that are gotten up to 7 figs, but the mindset of it is still like there's this little side hustle thing, but there's not like, okay, well, wow, I can actually, run this as a business. I have a payroll company. I have my insurance. I can go, set up as my business insurance, and I offer to my employees and stuff. It's actually a kind of legitimate kind of business, and it's a mindset shift that needs to take place.
And that's the thing. You're not just focusing. I mean, of course, you're focusing on the bottom line, but scaling up is not the only thing that you're focusing on. You also have to be an expert at marketing. You have to be an expert at the 7 million different hats that you have to wear when you're first starting out. So.
And I would say even expertise, because there are probably a lot of experts in a lot of things. You just have to know enough to be able to know if you're getting quality work done. It's you can trust people to do, they can probably do a far better job, but you have to at least know enough to manage, okay, am I getting the kind of quality I should be getting, or am I just throwing money away? So
Yeah, absolutely.
you just have to know at least that much.
Know your business, right?
Know your business.
Yeah.
Well, so that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna touch in and say, I think one of the, touching on what you were saying there, Oz, I feel like a lot of times when people are first starting to sell, there's kind of like a misunderstanding with most people where they kind of misconstrue revenue and cash flow. And I think like a really big part of being able to scale and, as you said, make sure you still have enough money as you're going along, is to really understand how the cash flows for your business works, rather than just what are my money inflows. You need to have a more complete picture.
Yeah, exactly. And it's easy to say, okay, this is kind of becomes a vanity metric to say what are my sales performance on Amazon, than to say actually how healthy is the business running. And especially if you start getting into kind of multi-channel, if I'm selling on Walmart, selling on eBay, have my own website, then having a holistic picture of all those channels and what's not being captured in that. If you're paying for consultants, if you've got payroll, you're missing some of those pieces. That's one of the things with Viably. We wanted to make this holistic pictures, bring all that data points in, so you get to see exactly what's happening in the business, and where cash flow really matters. It's like, okay, are you making exactly what you think you're making, or do you have some leaky buckets in there that you need to address?
Yeah, all super important stuff. So we're glad you're here with us. Hopefully our listeners are getting some of your, knowledge and wisdom that you've garnered over the years. So all of that being said, based on your experience and how kind of deeply involved you are in this, do you see, or have you seen over the past year or even the last quarter, any trends that are happening in the market, both not just in the e-commerce market, but also in the tech space too? Do you see any really cool innovations? Kind of where do you see things going?
Yeah, I mean, I was just in Seattle for Accelerate, and pretty much every event I've been to, everybody's talking about AI and how that's changing things. I was doing I don't know if this was something new that Google just launched, but it's like now I do Google search results, and in the results, the top thing now is I can go down the list of results, or I can just click the button and Google will generate it through its own AI, a actual response that answers your question. So it's infiltrating kind of from all sides, and it's becoming part of our everyday life. So, and then on top of that, from what I've seen, also some of the events was how imageries and stuff, how you can basically create an image, and how people are now using that to do their social media. Um, it's wild. I mean, it's an area that I feel like I'm still far behind on, and I see that it's just growing faster and faster, and trying to stay on top of it is. And I just hear that even when I was at the events, listening to sellers, it's like there's some people that are really in the depths of it, and others they're like, wow, this I don't know if I can catch up. And I think it presents an opportunity for a lot of kind of from an agency standpoint to say, okay, look, you don't have to try to figure all this out. Let us kind of come in and help you, because it's trying to understand the Amazon ecosystem. If you're doing any type of ads from Google and Facebook, there's a lot to take on, and if you can basically outsource that and get the help you need, that's probably not a bad thing. I mean, that's one thing as a whole I've seen in the industry. It seems very collaborative from what I've seen, and just compared to other industries in the e-commerce space, there is very much this kind of will help you, and there's kind of a support group, because there's a lot to learn. There's a steep learning curves in a lot of these areas, and the notion of what, I don't have to do everything myself. I can outsource. Just the amount of people that I see using VAs and stuff. I mean, it seems like the whole country of Philippines is just running to serve the e-commerce community. It seems like
that is very, very true.
But it's I think it's great that you can let go enough to say, hey, you know what, I can bring in the help I need to scale this, and it just allows, I think, reduces some of the barrier to entry. It's like, okay, so I see people in their 50s, late Gen Xers, and say, I'm going to get into this space. I don't have to sit there and know how to do everything. I'm not, I don't have to have the tech acumen that a 20-some-year-old may have. I can outsource some of that and leverage kind of talent that's out there. And as long as I can build a healthy enough business that my margins can cover that, then it's very doable, which goes back to understanding the business.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so would that be your advice to somebody wanting to enter the space, is to kind of start small, learn kind of like the ins and outs and everything that they need to do? I mean, like you said, there is so much to it, not just researching your product, researching the keywords, coming up with creatives, making sure that everything is up to, Amazon standards, optimizing your bid management, and then understanding all of your metrics so you actually know if you're doing okay or not. Do you sort of give that advice to people wanting to get in? Just kind of do like a test run, get your feet wet, get to know the ins and outs, and then come up with a product that you can scale up? Or
yeah, it's interesting. So I see ads and stuff where people talk about private label stuff, but that's a very capital intensive route to go. The path I see a lot of people that kind of inch their way into it is they start with retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, and then kind of move into wholesale, and then they're like, okay, you know what, once again goes back to like, am I thinking about this as a business, and there's a potential exit out of this, then what is sellable in this business? Is it, as a wholesale business, is it my operational efficiency and some of maybe the exclusives I have with some of the brands I'm working with, or am I launching my own brand and have got specific IP that is of value that I can turn around and sell?
Well,
So
I'm not gonna tell anybody, but what is that product? You can just tell me and I'll
it
you tell
starts
me
with the
now.
letter G.
Oh, that narrows it down. That's the thing in this ecosystem, you almost do have to have like a crystal ball.
Yep.
What's going to be hot 6 months from now. So definitely staying on top of those trends, and AI is going to be huge for that, I think, especially with coming up with creatives and everything. And like you said, it could be as simple or as intricate. You know, you can get on a Chat GPT and have zero knowledge of how AI works. And I think now there's places that give courses on how to refine creating things in AI.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen there's people now selling just books on prompts. So how to ask better questions. Now, I don't know where this all goes, meaning the sense that, okay, if because people start going to ideation to AI as well, do you actually over time get actually new ideas, or do you just end up getting regurgitating same ideas? If 100 people ask it the same thing, will there be some nuances that you actually get a different output, or do you have 100 people saying, okay, I'm going to go to the market and go build this thing because ChatGPT told me to? So
It is kind of a
yeah,
fascinating subject. Yeah.
yeah. Do you get true innovation, or do you just get, it can only be as smart as the collective? And what is innovation? Is this a breakthrough out of the status quo, or is it a new spin on what's already there?
Yeah,
Joe, did you
I
want to
think
chime in?
the answer to that is both yes and no. Like, and I think that's the importance of kind of that prompt engineering and really how you're asking things. Because the more general you are, the more similar to everyone else's answer it is. But the more nuanced and refined you can make your requests, then you can really narrow things down. And then if you change up, you edit your inputs a little bit, and again, just really keep on getting more granular. I think that's kind of how you do it. But overall, I think as everyone really gains those skills, it will become interesting to see. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
if nothing else, it'll give you clarity, right? It helps you clarify and distill in your mind what exactly is it that I'm wanting,
Mhm.
yeah, even on the ad side, I mean, you guys are closer to this. Do you see that? Because I hear people like, okay, you can just go to, ChatGPT and get your ad descriptions, and does it actually give you something that's uniquely different, that's more attractive and clickable, or does it need a lot of modification, or are you getting something new and fresh out of it? Did you
So
see?
I think for like writing up using like a ChatGPT or a Bard or something for writing up like a product description is super helpful, because with that product description you want to be having you want that idea of, I kind of want what everyone else is saying with like the right keywords and making sure that like your product links to some of these terms, and you want to be more broad. um, but then on the keyword side, there's kind of a mix where there's some real broad fathead keywords that you want to include. But if you could get kind of creative on, on like we call them USPs, unique selling propositions, on if you could kind of get creative there about what this product can be used for, and using ChatGPT as an aid for that to help you get in some keywords that you wouldn't really think of. It doesn't always work, but you could experiment and see if something works. And you could end up finding like a diamond in the rough that ends up really helping you.
Nice. So you can kind of leverage that to find the long tail of any of those kind of keywords and that product listing. It's interesting you said in this sense you're almost wanting the opposite. You don't want innovation. You want ChatGPT to give you the stuff that's already trending. And that use case that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to stand out. You want to tap into what's already the trend.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And like I think it does really well when that you give it like a solid amount of inputs, and like the more specific you are with something, the better answer you're gonna get. And so if you there's on ChatGPT 4, there's a lot that you can do with inputting different data. And when you have like a fixed amount of inputs for ChatGPT to look at, I think that there's a lot that you can get out of it that you normally wouldn't.
Nice. It's like I said, it's the wild west of AI, and I'm excited to be kind of around for it. See where this goes.
Yeah, same. I mean, so e-commerce has been here for a while, but all of these new changes, it's definitely going to be a whole new landscape, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the next probably 5 or 10 years or so.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, we definitely need to start wrapping things up, but before we go, do you have any last insights that you want to share? And if not, I'm going to ask you, since our podcast is called Adventure, I need to ask Oz, what do you do? What's the most adventurous thing that you've done?
Ooh, most adventurous thing. I mean, in recent years, it's probably something not new for what's out there, but for me, it was like, okay, I need to just get this off my bucket list. So I went skydiving. So Florida Emerald Coast, and just wanted to go have the experience of, jumping out of a perfectly healthy airplane and saying, okay, can I survive? So,
and here you are.
And here I am.
I'd say that's a pretty good first answer to that question being asked in the podcast.
That is. And as an aside, Oz, I'm actually on the Emerald Coast right now. That's where I live. So
nice. Yeah. It was beautiful to see it from 12,000 feet up. So
next time you do it, just shout really loud.
Yeah, I don't know if there'll be next time, but we'll see.
Once was enough.
Yeah, it was actually surprisingly much calmer up there than I would have expected. It's actually quite peaceful once you get over the fear.
The way down is peaceful. It's the landing.
The hard stop. Yeah. Exactly. Nobody died from skydiving. It's just a hard stop at the end that gets you.
That's one of our dad jokes there. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much for participating in our podcast. We super enjoyed having you here. Hopefully everybody that was listening got some insights for you, and hopefully they'll stay tuned for more interviews with business leaders in the future.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much. Take care.